The Second Book of the Odysseys of Homer. The Argument. Telemachus to court doth call The Wooers, and commands them all To leave his house; and taking then From wise Minerva ship and men, And all things fit for him beside, That Euryclea could provide For sea rights till he found his sire, He hoists sail, when heav'n stoops his fire. Another Argument. Beta. The old maid's store The voyage cheers; The ship leaves shore; Minerva steers. Now when with rosy fingers the early born, And thrown through all the air, appear'd the morn, Ulysses' lov'd son from his bed appear'd, His weeds put on, and did about him gird His sword, that thwart his shoulders hung, and tied To his fair feet fair shoes, and all parts plied For speedy readiness; who, when he trod The open earth, to men show'd like a God. The heralds then he straight charg'd to consort The curl'd headed Greeks with loud calls to a court. They summon'd; the other came in utmost haste; Who all assembled, and in one heap placed, He likewise came to council, and did bear In his fair hand his iron headed spear; Nor came alone, nor with men troops prepar'd, But 2 fleet dogs made both his train and guard. Pallas supplied with her high wisdom's grace, That all men's wants supplies, State's painted face. His ent'ring presence all men did admire, Who took seat in the high throne of his sire; To which the grave peers gave him rev'rend way. Amongst whom an Egyptian hero, Crooked with age, and full of skill, begun The speech to all; who had a lovéd son, That with divine Ulysses did ascend His hollow fleet to Troy, to serve which end. He kept fair horse, and was a man at arms, And in the cruel Cyclops' stern alarms His life lost by him in his hollow cave, Whose entrails open'd his abhorréd grave, And made of him, of all Ulysses' train, His latest supper, being latest slain. His name was Antiphus; and this old man, This crooked grown, this wise Egyptian, Had 3 sons more, of which one riotous A wooer was, and call'd Eurynomus. The other 2 took both his own wish'd course, Yet both the best fates weigh'd not down the worse, But left the old man mindful still of moan, Who, weeping, thus bespake the session: "Hear, Ithacensians, all I fitly say. Since our divine Ulysses' parting day Never was council call'd, nor session; And now by whom is this thus undergone? Whom did necessity so much compell Of young or old? Hath anyone heard tell Of any coming army, that he thus now May openly take boldness to avow, First having heard it? Or will any here Some motion for the public good prefer? Some worth of note there is in this command, And, methinks, it must be some good man's hand That's put to it, that either hath direct Means to assist, or for his good effect Hopes to be happy in the proof he makes, And that Jove grant whate'er he undertakes." Telemachus, rejoicing much to hear The good hope and opinion men did bear Of his young actions, no longer sat, But long'd t' approve what this man pointed at, And made his first proof in a cause so good. And in the council's chief place up he stood; When straight Pisenor, herald to his sire, And learn'd in counsels, felt his heart on fire To hear him speak, and put into his hand The sceptre that his father did command. Then, to the old Egyptian turn'd, he spoke: "Father, not far he is that undertook To call this council, whom you soon shall know. Myself, whose wrongs my griefs will make me show, Am he that author'd this assembly here. Nor have I heard of any army near, Of which, being first told, I might iterate, Nor for the public good can aught relate. Only mine own affairs all this procure, That in my house a double ill endure: One, having lost a father so renown'd, Whose kind rule once with your command was crown'd. The other is, what much more doth augment His weighty loss, the ruin imminent Of all my house by it, my goods all spent. And of all this the Wooers, that are sons of our chief peers, are the confusions, importuning my mother's marriage against her will. Nor dares their blood's bold rage go to Icarius' her father's court, that his will asked in kind and comely sort he may endow his daughter with a dower, and, she consenting, at his pleasure's pow'r dispose her to a man, that, thus behav'd, may have fit grace, and see her honour sav'd. But these, in none but my house all their lives resolve to spend, slaughtering my sheep and beeves, and with my fattest goats lay feast on feast, my gen'rous wine consuming as they list. A world of things they spoil, here wanting one, that, like Ulysses, quickly could get gone these peace plagues from his house, that spoil like war, whom my pow'rs are unfit to urge so far, myself immartial. But, had I the pow'r, my will should serve me to exempt this hour from out my lifetime. For, past patience, base deeds are done here, that exceed defence of any honour. Falling is my house, which you should shame to see so ruinous. Reverence the censures that all good men give, that dwell about you, and for fear to live exposed to heaven's wrath, that doth ever pay pains for joy's forfeit. Even by Jove I pray, or Themis, both which pow'rs have to restrain or gather counsels, that ye will abstain from further spoil, and let me only waste in that most wretched grief I have embraced for my lost father. And though I am free from meriting your outrage, yet, if he, good man, hath ever with a hostile heart done ill to any Greek, on me convert your like hostility, and vengeance take of his ill on my life, and all these make join in that justice. But, to see abused those goods that do none ill, but being ill used exceeds all right, yet better 'tis for me my whole possessions and my rents to see consum'd by you, than lose my life and all. For on your rapine a revenge may fall, while I live, and so long I may complain about the city, till my goods again, oft ask'd, may be with all amends repaid. But in the mean space your misrule hath laid griefs on my bosom, that can only speak, and are denied the instant pow'r of wreak." This said, his sceptre 'gainst the ground he threw, And tears still'd from him, which mov'd all the crew. The court struck silent, not a man did dare To give a word that might offend his ear. Antinous only in this sort replied: "High spoken, and of spirit unpacified, how have you sham'd us in this speech of yours? Will you brand us for an offence not ours? Your mother, first in craft, is first in cause. 3 years are past, and near the 4th now draws, Since first she mock'd the peers Achaean. All she made hope, and promis'd every man, Sent for us ever, left love's show in nought, But in her heart conceal'd another thought. Besides, as curious in her craft, her loom She with a web charg'd, hard to overcome, And thus bespake us: 'Youths, that seek my bed, Since my divine spouse rests among the dead, Hold on your suits but till I end, at most, This fun'ral weed, lest what is done be lost. Besides, I propose, that when th' austere fate Of bitter death shall take into his state Laertes the heroë, it shall deck His royal corse, since I should suffer check In ill report of ev'ry common dame, If one so rich should show in death his shame." This speech she us'd, and this did soon persuade Our gentle minds. But this a work she made So hugely long, undoing still in night, By torches, all she did by day's broad light, That 3 years her deceit div'd past our view, And made us think that all she feign'd was true. But when the 4th year came, and those sly hours That still surprise at length dames' craftiest pow'rs, One of her women, that knew all, disclos'd The secret to us, that she still unloos'd Her whole day's fair affair, in depth of night, And then no further she could force her sleight, But of necessity her work gave end. And thus, by me, doth every other friend, Professing love to her, reply to thee, That ev'n thyself, and all Greeks else may see That we offend not in our stay, but she. To free thy house, then, send her to her sire, commanding that her choice be left entire to his election, and one settled will. Nor let her vex with her illusions still her friends that woo her, standing on her wit, because wise Pallas hath given wills to it so full of art, and made her understand all works in fair skill of a lady's hand. But, for her working mind, we read none of all the old world, in which Greece has shown her rarest pieces, that could equal her. Tyro, Alcmena, and Mycena were to hold comparison in no degree, for solid brain, with wise Penelope. And yet in her delays of us, she shows no prophet's skill with all the wit she owes. For all this time thy goods and victuals go to utter ruin, and shall ever so, while thus the Gods her glorious mind dispose. Glory herself may gain, but thou shalt lose thy longings even for necessary food, for we will never go where lies our good, nor any other where, till this delay she puts on all, she quits with the endless stay of some one of us, that to all the rest may give free farewell with his nuptial feast. The wise young prince replied: Antinous, I may by no means turn out of my house her that hath brought me forth and nourished me. Besides, if quick or dead my father be in any region, yet abides in doubt. And 'twill go hard, my means being so run out, to tend her to Icarius again, if he again my mother must maintain in her retreat, the dower she brought with her, and then a double ill it will confer, both from my father and from God on me, when, thrust out of her house on her bent knee, my mother shall the horrid Furies raise with imprecations, and all men dispraise my part in her exposure. Never then will I perform this counsel. If your spleen swell at my courses, once more I command your absence from my house. Some other's hand charge with your banquets, on your own goods eat, and either other mutually entreat at either of your houses with your feast. But if ye still esteem more sweet and best another's spoil, so you still reckless live, gnaw, vermin like, things sacred no laws give to your devouring, it remains that I invoke each ever living Deity, and vow, if Jove shall deign in any date power of like pains for pleasure so past rate, from thenceforth look where ye have revelled so unwreaked, your ruins all shall undergo. Thus spake Telemachus, to assure whose threat far-seeing Jove upon their pinions set two eagles from the high brows of a hill, that mounted on the winds, together still their strokes extended, but arriving now amidst the council, over every brow shook their thick wings, and threat'ning death's cold fears their necks and cheeks tore with their eager seres. Then on the court's right hand away they flew, above both court and city, with whose view, and study what events they might foretell, the council into admiration fell. The old hero, Halitherses then, the son of Nestor, that of all old men his peers in that court, only could foresee by flight of fowls man's fixed destiny, 'twixt them and their amaze, this interposed: Hear, Ithacensians, all your doubts disclosed. The wooers most are touch'd in this ostent, to whom are dangers great and imminent. For now not long more shall Ulysses bear lack of his most lov'd, but fills some place near, addressing to these wooers fate and death. And many more this mischief menaceth of us inhabiting this famous isle. Let us consult yet, in this long forewhile, how to ourselves we may prevent this ill. Let these men rest secure, and revel still, though they might find it safer, if with us they would in time prevent what threats them thus. Since not without sure trial I foretell these coming storms, but know their issue well. For to Ulysses all things have event, as I foretold him when for Ilion went the whole Greek fleet together, and with them, the abundant in all counsels, took the stream. I told him that when much ill he had passed, and all his men were lost, he should at last the 20th year turn home to all unknown, all which effects are to perfection grown. Eurymachus, the son of Polybus, opposed this man's presage, and answered thus: Hence, great in years, go, prophesy at home. thy children teach to shun their ills to come. In these superior far to thee am I. The world of fowls beneath the sunbeams fly That are not fit t' inform a prophecy. Besides, Ulysses perish'd long ago, And would thy fates to thee had destin'd so, Since so thy so much prophecy had spar'd Thy wronging of our rights; which, for reward, Expected home with thee hath summon'd us With the anger of Telemachus. But this I will presage, which shall be true: If any spark of anger chance t' ensue Thy much old art in these deep auguries, In this young man, incensed by thy lies, Ev'n to himself his anger shall confer The greater anguish, and thine own ends err From all their objects; and, besides, thine age Shall feel a pain to make thee curse presage With worthy cause, for it shall touch thee near. But I will soon give end to all our fear, Preventing whatsoever chance can fall In my suit to the young prince for us all, To send his mother to her father's house, That he may sort her out a worthy spouse, And such a dow'r bestow as may befit One lov'd, to leave her friends and follow it. Before which course be, I believe that none Of all the Greeks will cease th' ambition Of such a match. For, chance what can to us, We no man fear, no, not Telemachus, Though ne'er so greatly spoken. Nor care we for any threats of austere prophecy, Which thou, old dotard, vaunt'st of so in vain. And thus shalt thou in much more hate remain; For still the Gods shall bear their ill expense, Nor ever be dispos'd by competence, Till with her nuptials she dismiss our suits. Our whole lives' days shall sow hopes for such fruits. Her virtues we contend to, nor will go To any other, be she never so Worthy of us, and all the worth we owe." He answer'd him: "Eurymachus, and all ye gen'rous Wooers, now in general I see your brave resolves, and will no more Make speech of these points, and much less implore. It is enough, that all the Grecians hear, And all the Gods besides just witness bear, What friendly premonitions have been spent On your forbearance, and their vain event. Yet, with my other friends, let love prevail To fit me with a vessel free of sail, And 20 men, that may divide to me My ready passage through the yielding sea For Sparta, and Amathuan Pylos' shore. I am now bound in purpose to explore My long lack'd father, and to try if Fame Or Jove, most author of man's honour'd name, With his return in life may glad mine ear, Though toil'd in that proof I sustain a year. If dead I hear him, nor of more state, Here retir'd to my lov'd country I will rear a sepulchre to him, And celebrate such royal parent rites As fits his state, and then my mother to A spouse dispose." This said, he sat, and to the rest arose Mentor, that was Ulysses' chosen friend; To whom, when he set forth, he did commend His complete family, and whom he will'd To see the mind of his old sire fulfill'd, All things conserving safe, till his retreat. Who, tender of his charge, and seeing so set In slight care of their king his subjects there, Suff'ring his son so much contempt to bear, Thus gravely, and with zeal, to him began: "No more let any sceptre bearing man, Benevolent or mild, or human be, Nor in his mind form acts of piety, But ever feed on blood, and facts unjust Commit, ev'n to the full swing of his lust, Since of divine Ulysses no man now, Of all his subjects, any thought doth show; All whom he govern'd, and became to them, Rather than one that wore a diadem, A most indulgent father. But for all that can touch me, within no envy fall These insolent Wooers, that in violent kind Commit things foul by the ill wit of the mind, And with the hazard of their heads devour Ulysses' house, since his returning hour They hold past hope. But it affects me much, ye dull plebeians, That all this doth touch your free states nothing, Who, struck dumb, afford these Wooers not So much wreak as a word, though few, and you With only number might Extinguish to them the profan'd light." Evenor's son, Leocritus, replied: "Mentor, the railer, made a fool with pride, what language giv'st thou that would quiet us with putting us in storm, exciting thus the rout against us? Who, though more than we, should find it no easy victory to drive men, habited in feast, from feasts? No, not if Ithacus himself such guests should come and find so furnishing his court, and hope to force them from so sweet a fort. His wife should little joy in his arrive, though much she wants him; for, where she alive would hers enjoy, there death should claim his rights. He must be conquer'd, that with many fights. Thou speak'st unfit things. To their labours then disperse these people, and let these two men, Mentor and Halitherses, that so boast from the beginning to have govern'd most in friendship of the father, to the son confirm the course he now affects to run. But my mind says, that, if he would but use a little patience, he should hear news of all things that his wish would understand, but no good hope for of the course in hand. This said, the council rose, when every peer and all the people in dispersion were to houses of their own. The Wooers yet made to Ulysses' house their old retreat. Telemachus, apart from all the priests, prepar'd to shore, and in the aged seas his fair hands wash'd, did thus to Pallas pray: "Hear me, O Goddess, that but yesterday didst deign access to me at home, and lay grave charge on me to take ship, and enquire along the dark seas for mine absent sire; which all the Greeks oppose, amongst whom most those that are proud still at another's cost, past measure, and the civil rights of men my mother's Wooers my repulse maintain." Thus spake he praying, when close to him came Pallas, resembling Mentor both in frame of voice and person, and advis'd him thus: "Those Wooers well might know, Telemachus, thou wilt not ever weak and childish be, if to thee be instill'd the faculty of mind and body that thy father grac'd; and if, like him, there be in thee enchanc'd virtue to give words works, and works their end. This voyage, that to them thou didst commend, shall not so quickly, as they idly ween, be vain or given up, for their opposite spleen. But, if Ulysses nor Penelope were thy true parents, I then hope in thee of no more urging thy attempt in hand. For few, that rightly bred on both sides stand, are like their parents; many that are worse, and most few better. Those then that the nurse, or mother, call true born, yet are not so, like worthy sires, much less are like to grow. But thou show'st now that in thee fades not quite thy father's wisdom, and that future light shall therefore show thee far from being unwise, or touch'd with stain of bastard cowardice. Hope therefore says, that thou wilt to the end pursue the brave act thou didst erst intend. But for the foolish Wooers, they bewray they neither counsel have nor soul, since they are neither wise nor just, and so must needs rest ignorant how black above their heads Fate hovers, holding death, that one sole day will make enough to make them all away. For thee, the way thou wishest shall no more fly thee a step. I, that have been before thy father's friend, thine likewise now will be. Provide thy ship myself, and follow thee. Go thou then home, and soothe each Wooer's vein, but underhand fit all things for the main. Wine in as strong and sweet casks as you can, and meal, the very marrow of a man, which put in good sure leather sacks, and see That with sweet food sweet vessels still agree. I from the people straight will press for you free voluntaries. And for ships, enow sea‐circled Ithaca contains, both new and old built; all which I'll exactly view, and choose what one soever most doth please; which rigg'd, we'll straight launch, and assay the seas." This spake Jove's daughter, Pallas; whose voice heard, no more Telemachus her charge deferr'd, but hasted home, and, sad at heart, did see amidst his hall the insulting Wooers flea goats, and roast swine. 'Mongst whom Antinous, careless, discov'ring in Telemachus his grudge to see them, laugh'd, met, took his hand, and said: "High spoken! With the mind so mann'd, come, do as we do. Put not up your spirits with these low trifles, nor our loving merits in gall of any hateful purpose steep, but eat egregiously, and drink as deep. The things thou think'st on, all at full shall be By the Achives thought on, and perform'd to thee. Ship and choice oars, that in a trice will land Thy hasty fleet on heav'nly Pylos' sand, And at the fame of thy illustrious sire." He answer'd: "Men whom pride did so inspire Are not fit consorts for an humble guest, Nor are constrain'd men merry at their feast. Is't not enough that all this time ye have oped in your entrails my chief goods a grave, And, while I was a child, made me partake? My now more growth more grown my mind doth make, And, hearing speak more judging men than you, Perceive how much I was misgovern'd now. I now will try if I can bring ye home An ill fate to consort you, if it come From Pylos, or amongst the people here. But thither I resolve, and know that there I shall not touch in vain. Nor will I stay, Though in a merchant's ship I steer my way, Which shows in your sights best, since me ye know Incapable of ship, or men to row." This said, his hand he coyly snatch'd away From forth Antinous' hand. The rest the day spent through the house with banquets, Some with jests, and some with railings, dignifying their feasts. To whom a jest‐proud youth the wit began: "Telemachus will kill us every man, From Sparta to the very Pylian sand. He will raise aids to his impetuous hand. O, he affects it strangely! Or he means to search Ephyra's fat shores, and from thence bring deathful poisons, which amongst our bowls Will make a general shipwrack of our souls." Another said: "Alas, who knows but he, once gone, And erring like his sire at sea, May perish like him, far from aid of friends? And so he makes us work? For all the ends Left of his goods here we shall share, the house Left to his mother and her chosen spouse." Thus they, while he a room ascended, high And large, built by his father, where did lie Gold and brass heap'd up, and in coffers were Rich robes, sweet store of odorous oils, And there stood tuns of sweet old wines along the wall, Neat and divine drink, kept to cheer withal Ulysses' old heart, if he turn'd again From labours fatal to him to sustain. The doors of plank were, their close exquisite, Kept with a double key, and day and night A woman lock'd within, and that was she Who all trust had for her sufficiency, Old Euryclea, one of Opus' race, Son to Pisenor, and in passing grace With grey Minerva. Her the prince did call, And said: "Nurse, draw me the most sweet Of all the wine thou keep'st; next that which for my sire Thy care reserves, in hope he shall retire. 12 vessels fill me forth, and stop them well. Then into well sew'd sacks of fine ground meal Pour 20 measures. Nor to any one But thee thyself let this design be known. All this see got together. I it all In night will fetch off, when my mother shall Ascend her high room, and for sleep prepare. Sparta and Pylos I must see, in care To find my father." Out Euryclea cried, And ask'd with tears: "Why is your mind applied, Dear son, to this course? Whither will you go? So far off leave us, and belov'd so only, and the sole hope of your race? Royal Ulysses, far from the embrace Of his kind country, in a land unknown Is dead, and you from your lov'd country gone. The Wooers will with some deceit assay To your destruction, making then their prey Of all your goods, where in your own y'are strong, Make sure abode. It fits not you so young To suffer so much by the aged seas, And err in such a wayless wilderness." "Be cheer'd, lov'd nurse," said he, "for, not without The will of God go my attempts about. Swear therefore not to wound my mother's ears With word of this, before from heav'n appears The 11th or 12th light, or herself shall please To ask me, or hears me put to seas, Lest her fair body with her woe be wore." To this the great oath of the Gods she swore. Which having sworn, and of it every due Perform'd to full, to vessels wine she drew, And into well sew'd sacks pour'd foody meal. In meantime he, with cunning to conceal all thought of this from others, himself bore in broad house, with the Wooers as before. Then grey‐eyed Pallas other thoughts did own, and like Telemachus trod through the town, commanding all his men in the even to be aboard his ship. Again then questioned she Nanon, fam'd for aged Phronius' son, about his ship, who all things to be done assured her freely should. The sun then set, and sable shadows slid through every street, when forth they launch'd, and soon aboard did bring all arms, and choice of every needful thing that fits a well rigg'd ship. The Goddess then stood in the port's extreme part, where her men, nobly appointed, thick about her came, whose every breast she did with spirit enflame. Yet still fresh projects laid the grey‐eyed Dame. Straight to the house she hasted, and sweet sleep pour'd on each Wooer, which so laid in steep their drowsy temples, that each brow did nod as all were drinking, and each hand his load the cup let fall. All start up, and to bed, nor more would watch, when sleep so surfeited their leaden eyelids. Then did Pallas call Telemachus, in body, voice, and all resembling Mentor, from his native nest, and said, that all his arm'd men were address'd to use their oars, and all expected now he should the spirit of a soldier show. Come then, said she, no more let us defer our honour'd action. Then she took on her a ravish'd spirit, and led as she did leap, and he her most haste took out step by step. Arriv'd at sea in ship, they found ashore the soldiers that their fashion'd long hair wore. To whom the prince said, Come, my friends, let's bring our voyage's provisions. Every thing is heaped together in our court, and none, no, not my mother, nor her maids, but one knows our intention. This express'd, he led. The soldiers close together followed, and all together brought aboard their store. Aboard the prince went. Pallas still before sat at the stern, he close to her, the men up hasted after. He and Pallas then put from the shore. His soldiers then he bad see all their arms fit, which they heard, and had. A beechen mast then in the hollow base they put, and hoisted, fixed it in its place with cables, and with well‐wreath'd hawsers hoised their white sails, which grey Pallas now employs with full and fore gales through the dark deep main. The purple waves, so swift cut, roar'd again against the ship's sides, that now ran and plough'd the rugged seas up. Then the men bestow'd their arms about the ship, and sacrifice with crown'd wine cups to the endless deities they offer'd up. Of all yet throned above, they most observed the grey‐eyed seed of Jove, who, from the evening till the morning rose, and all day long their voyage did dispose.